everybody, Cori here. So I'm here today to film a recommendations video for you. We are currently in the middle of shipping out our May Epic Adventures box, and I thought I would recommend you some books that also feature some other epic adventures. So today I have 5 books to share with you and 1 honorable mention, so let's just dive in. The first book I want to talk about is Binti by Nnedi Okorafor. Now this is a series of 3 novellas that I absolutely fell in love with last year. It features our main character named Binti, and she is the first of her people to be accepted into the prestigious Himba University, which is the best university in the entire galaxy. At the very beginning of the book, and this book is only about 100 pages long, she boards a space shuttle en route to the university. Unfortunately, not long into her voyage, the spaceship is boarded by an alien race that is currently at war with her people. These aliens essentially kill everybody on board except for herself, and she has to survive this journey to the university. It doesn't turn out in a way that you think it would, but it is quite a cool adventure. The entire trilogy is just, it's very episodic in each book, and each book has this like really cool adventure to it. It's definitely sci-fi, but I think it's accessible to anyone, and it was just a wonderful read. So next up, I have a book that I finished just last month and I think is so underrated, and that is Graywolf Island by Tracey Neithercott. At the beginning of this book, we have twin sisters Sadie and Ruby is unfortunately dying of cancer, and on her deathbed she asks Sadie to find the treasure that lies on Graywolf Island. This treasure is like a legend in the town that they live in, and it's been seeked for many years, and it's very, very mysterious. Now Sadie was definitely the lesser adventurous of the twins, and so she kind of has to step outside her comfort zone to fulfill her sister's final wish. She ends up teaming up kind of reluctantly with 4 other kids from the town, and they end up going to Graywolf Island in search of this treasure. This one definitely gets recommended with Raven Boy vibes, and I feel like that's definitely true. It's kind of one of the only books that when I heard that recommendations I was like, oh, I get it, because it is slightly magical. Each character has something slightly magical about them, but it doesn't take over the plot of the story. I think the best description of this book would be The Raven Boys meets Sandcastle Empire by Kayla Olson, because they do have to contend with this island that kind of seems living in its own way. I really, really enjoyed the book. I think it's criminally underrated, and I recommend you pick it up. So next up, I have one of 2 OwlCrate books on this list, and that is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzi Lee. This is a historical fiction romp that I'm sure a lot of you have read and loved already, but it is just one great epic adventure. It follows our main character Monty, and he is setting off on the Grand Tour, which in his time period is kind of the year off before he has to like become a man and take over his father's estate. And he and his sister Felicity and his best friend Percy go off on this adventure, and close to the beginning, the scandalous Monty steals an artifact, and they end up going on kind of a wild goose chase around Europe. It's so fun and so funny. The adventure itself just keeps you turning the pages one after another. The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy, the follow-up to this novel which follows Felicity, is also great, and it's this kind of historical fiction like I've never read before, and it definitely was not boring. Next up, I have an alternate history novel, and that is Wolf by Ryan Graudin. This is set in a world in 1956 in which Hitler won the Second World War. It follows our main character Yael, who was previously a prisoner in a concentration camp and had many terrible experiments done on her, so she is now able to shapeshift. I think she's called a skin shifter. So in this world, the Axis powers put on a motorcycle race across Europe every single year, and Yael decides to shapeshift herself into looking like the only previous female to ever win the race and enter the race. Because the winner of this race gets to meet Hitler, and she wants to meet him and then kill him. It is very fast-paced, motorcycle race awesomeness. The trip becomes extra tricky because not only is she in this dangerous race, but Yael's brother and former lover are also in the race, so she has to trick them into believing who she is. Loved it. Such a great book. It'll definitely, another one that'll just keep you on the edge of your seat, and another historical fiction like I've never seen before. Sometimes historical fiction can be really surprising, and I definitely recommend you pick this one up. Next up, I have the second OwlCrate book on this list, and that is Shadow of the Fox by Julie Kagawa. This follows a young kitsune who is half girl, half fox, named Yumiko, and she has been raised at this very remote Silent Winds temple for all of her life. Right at the beginning of this novel, her temple has been burned to the ground, her family is gone, and she is forced to flee the temple with the temple's greatest treasure, which is part of a scroll. And if you have every single part to the scroll, you are able to summon the great Kami dragon, who will grant you one wish of anything you should please. So obviously that is a lot of power. She tricks a young samurai named Tatsumi to join her in her quest, as she tells him she doesn't have the scroll, but she knows where it is, and if he helps her get there, he can have part of it. So they end up going on this crazy adventure together. It really feels, if you like anime, it definitely has that vibe to it, where it feels like an anime episode of all these different adventures they have. They run into all sorts of different monsters and have all these different perils on the road. I absolutely loved it. Cannot wait to read the follow-up, which comes out very soon. And so my honorable mention will be The Scorpio Races by Maggie Stiefvater. Now this wouldn't be an epic adventure. I think this one feels more like a quiet adventure. We have obviously talked about this book quite a few times on our channel, but that's for good reason, because we just love it here in this office. If you didn't know, this is about a young girl named Puck, and on this quiet island she lives on, every year there is something called the Scorpio Races, and this is where they wear and this is where people ride dangerous water horses for glory, basically. No girl has ever entered this race, but she decides to defy the odds and enter the race, and she ends up partnering up with a former champion named Sean to try to compete and win this race. It's a beautifully written book. Again, the adventure is quite quiet, but it is in there, and it all takes place on this tiny island, and it's just so atmospheric, but I couldn't help but want to bring it up. Alright, so that is just a few of the books that I would recommend that feature some epic adventures in them. If you have any recommendations for me, please leave them in the comments down below. Always on the lookout to add books to my TBR pile. If you're getting the May box, I hope you enjoy it, and if you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Happy reading, and thanks for being awesome. Bye!